Councillor Matthew Thompson, Councillor Jessie, and we're very pleased to see you. We also have our city staff who can clarify information about the MacDonald Street extension and planning for the Ashmore estate and answer your questions. We are keen for residents to hear from the city firsthand. So I'm going to just do an introduction and then I'll hand over to Kim to talk to you about the project. I want to acknowledge the Gadigal of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of our land, and pay my respects to the elders both past and present, and also acknowledge the people of the many nations who live in our city. I believe we all want the same things: the quiet enjoyment of our homes, an environment that's clean and green, and streets that are safe. And I believe we should all have a say in the future of our neighbourhoods. I've spent most of my life working on these principles. That's why I care very much about the impact new developments have on current and future residents. That image is my first election in 1980 in the back lane of Redfern. Ashmore Precinct was first identified for urban renewal in the mid-90s. Consultation began in 1995 under government direction really, and since then the city has conducted studies both in-house and with independent specialists. We've developed plans and consulted again with communities about how best to renew the former industrial site and see what it was like initially. Master planning commenced at the turn of the century. A development control plan was adopted by the city in 2006 and a planning proposal was adopted in 2013. Over the following years, the city undertook more detailed design and technical studies, infrastructure planning and community consultation. This led to the approval of the concept plan in 2017, which comprised 9 blocks with green streets and good bike and pedestrian connections, the 7,000 square metre McPherson Park and the new trunk drainage to prevent flooding. Half of the blocks are now occupied, another is under construction. The work on McPherson Park is underway. When the remaining blocks are finalised, the precinct will be home to about 6,000 residents. Not far from Ashmore, another larger former industrial site is being transformed into a modern, livable neighbourhood with award-winning community facilities and open spaces. Green Square, it's pretty much a city within a city. Again, that was announced by the Labour government at the time in 1995. It's been left up to the city to do. So the plan is that there will be 60,000 residents living there by 2030. We've built some wonderful facilities: the aquatic centre, sports fields, library, early childhood centre, primary school. And now we're building a connector road that will connect people living in Ashmore and in Erskineville with Green Square, so you'll be able to have easy access to those beautiful facilities. Creating new sustainable neighbourhoods with high residential amenity is some of the most important work we do at the city. People here tonight have probably personally experienced expertise and integrity of city staff who are managing these large transformations. Using design excellence and competitive design processes, we're negotiating hard with developers. We're extracting world-class and humane designs for our buildings and our neighbourhoods. 3.5 years ago, I was at MacDonald Street celebrating the construction of its wide and accessible footpaths, crossings, cycleways, the undergrounding of power lines, new drainage, lighting and the planting of 47 trees. Today we're talking about extending the last 200 metres of MacDonald Street between Hatfield Street and Mitchell Road. This future road has been on the books since 2013. The city negotiated for the construction of these low traffic changes with the developer, and we ran 2 rounds of consultation about them in 2023 and 2024, using direct mail outs to 3,300 homes. We received 7 submissions, which were considered. In addition, a representative from my office meets monthly with Friends of Erskineville and regularly with community members. A year ago, the independent local planning panel that was set up by government approved plans for MacDonald Street and surrounding public domain, including the low traffic street extension. A street with 1 lane of traffic in each direction, 1 lane of traffic in each direction, on-street parking on both sides, interspersed with on-road trees and greenery, a 2-way cycleway, raised pedestrian crossings and wide footpaths, also on both sides of the road. Also, Cookle Walk on the northeast linear park was also approved. I was involved in what some of you have called the Road Walls protest in Erskineville and Redfern in the 80s. It was before road closures and calming of streets was really part of what council did then. And we were very successful in that campaign, getting through traffic out of narrow residential roads. The city's track record in delivering bike-friendly neighbourhoods is something I am proud of. Our master plan neighbourhoods have achieved high levels of cycling participation, with 15% of Green Square residents and 19% of Ashmore residents cycling to work or study. This type of planning is what the City of Sydney is now known for. This is not road walls. The City has listened and has valued consulting with communities every step of the way with regards to the traffic lights on the intersection of MacDonald and Maddox Streets and Mitchell Road. After working with Friends of Erskineville, we engaged private consultants who concluded that signals are safe and easy for people walking and riding. You'll hear more about this from staff. We govern for everyone, including the 6,000 residents of Ashmore Estate, some of whom will need car access to their homes and to facilitate services or work. However, if the experts are wrong about MacDonald Street, we will know. I've asked city staff to review its functioning as intended after construction. My whole life I've worked for better amenity and livability for inner city residents. I've fought some pretty tough battles, especially with people like Alan Jones and the Daily Telegraph, to create a city that prioritises walking and cycling. We've prioritised the construction of wide footpaths, tree canopy and greenery, 29 kilometres of separated cycleways, 66 kilometres of shared paths and another 61 kilometres of other cycling infrastructure, and changed our planning controls to reduce the use of private cars. And while we continue advocating for better public transport, we will need to provide road access for people who need to drive. I hope we all leave here tonight with an understanding of the broader context of the development of the Ashmore Estate and the surrounding areas and the city's ambitions for Erskineville. So I'd now like to invite Kim. Sorry, first of all we're going to have Ben Peachy to talk to you, one of our very talented planners. Ben.
All right, good evening folks. Thanks for turning out tonight. And thanks for the introduction from the Lord Mayor. So we've already passed, we've updated the agenda. So I'm going to talk to you about the first two items, really about how we got here and the thinking behind the plan for Ashmore, which goes back a long time. And also then dive down into how we thought about the transport planning for Ashmore too. And I hope to be able to give you some understanding of why the MacDonald Street intersection is there. So this is the current plan. It's called a structure plan. It's from the planning control, the development control plan. It was adopted in 2013. And so a plan like this particular image tries to show you and synthesise all the elements of the future precinct. It shows the new public spaces, the streets in grey, the parks in green. It shows the boundaries of the development sites, the expected heights of buildings, where the shops should go and where the services should be. And in particular, it shows MacDonald Street extending east-west and connecting through to Maddox Street. It shows, if I might finish, please. Sorry.
It doesn't show the railway bridge at the western end.
Sure. Yeah, that's the rail corridor.
Well, yeah, the road comes to a dead stop at the railway there.
I think you have to use your imagination to imagine where the road continues.
Sorry, it's an illustrative plan. It's not a. But yes, the road does continue under, and it continues to the west. And I understand that's why we're here. So MacDonald Street, it also shows the east-west route along MacDonald, Eve and Coulson Streets, which is there at the moment. So those existing streets are shown in white. MacDonald Street it's the primary street for the precinct and a really important organising element. It connects the smaller north-south streets and allows in and out access to the precinct, and it brings people to the parks and the shops, and it does that for whether you're walking, you are riding, or you're in a car. So when we plan for precincts like this, it's really an exercise in geometry and iteration. So we push and pull the pieces. Where do the parks go? How big are the streets? How wide are they? What do they line up with? How much overshadowing are we causing? What are the heights of the buildings? All of that, and it gets tested and refined through those iterations. And that's what we did with this plan. But I'll take you back to 2006, which was the first development control plan for the precinct that the council adopted. So South Sydney Council first started planning for this in 2003. They stopped planning for it as the amalgamation occurred, and then the city picked that planning up in 2005 and prepared the first development control plan. And what you'll see here is that it's very similar to the current plan, and particularly MacDonald Street was there from the first plan. In fact, there's been little change generally to the blocks and the street layouts. And this plan went through reviews, it went through state government interventions, it went through developers proposing alternatives, it went through peer reviews, and it went through multiple exhibitions. And MacDonald Street has remained the primary east-west connection. And the street network has remained very consistent. So just illustrating some of those touch points along the way. As I mentioned, the City of Sydney Council, the Amalgamated Council in 2005, reconvened the planning and also had a steering group at that time that involved community landowners and experts, and that led to the adopted draft in 2006. There were reviews of the plan, primarily about density rather than the layout of the precinct, happening in 2009 and then through 2011 to 2013 when the current plan was adopted. Then we skip ahead a few years, and some of the sites started developing under the plan we have now, but there was a concept plan for the large land holding on the eastern side of the precinct, and the owner at the time submitted a concept plan, which is a more general, higher level plan, necessary for when there's multiple buildings going to be built in a precinct. And that concept plan, when that was approved by the Central Sydney Planning Committee, it outlined where the infrastructure would be, so the roads and the parks, Cooker Walk, and the streets, including MacDonald Street, the intersection. And it was also that infrastructure was gathered up in a planning agreement. And that's an agreement between the council and the developer for the developer to deliver the infrastructure that is outlined by council in its plan and needed for the development. Following that, and not directly related to that, but it certainly incorporated the expectations of the developments. In 2018 and 2023, there was some local area traffic management planning and studies, and that incorporated the expected amount of development that would occur, the traffic that it would create, and the intersections that had been, and roads that had been agreed in the concept plan DA. And then most recently, in February last year, there was an approval of a development application for the infrastructure itself. So that eastern precinct of Ashmore, there'll be a number of development applications for it. Most of them will be for buildings. But this one in particular was for just about building the park, the walk, and the roads, including the MacDonald Street intersection. So what's the thinking that goes on behind laying out a street like MacDonald Street in a precinct like Ashmore? There's a number of good urban design and transport planning principles behind it. So we want our neighbourhoods to be permeable. This means that it's easy to move in, through, and out of the neighbourhood and to the adjoining places, whatever your mode of transport. It's not always easy because of existing development. So, you know, for Ashmore, you know that there's the terraces along Ashmore Street. There's a rail line, there's also flooding issues, all these sorts of, and older subdivision patterns, all these sorts of things affect how permeable you might be able to make your new place. And so you take every opportunity you can to make it permeable. You want to have many points as possible to connect with the surrounding neighbourhood and line those points up with those existing connections, so those streets that are already there. So it's as easy as possible for people to move through, and you give people options when travelling. We also make sure our places are legible. And so this means that when you're travelling in a direction, you actually can keep going in that direction and not be taken on an indirect route. I'm sure many of us have driven around Canberra and thought we were going one way and it ended up in a completely different direction. But a legible neighbourhood will allow you to see from one end, from where you are, to where you need to go as much as possible. There's also a hierarchy of streets. And so what do we mean by this? That the streets have different functions. So there's the main north-south access, which is Cook Walk, and brings people really tries to connect people between the two parks. And this street and the east-west route is MacDonald Street. So, and these streets are wider, and they have all the pedestrian infrastructure, they have more trees, they have the cycle lanes, they have the crossings, and they're designed as slower streets. And they, as I said, they connect to the parks, but they also connect to the shops, and they connect out of the precinct too. And so the smaller north-south streets, they bring people down onto that main street where you'll find the activity and where you'll find the most comfortable place to walk, ride, or travel. And that's because of the trees, it's because of the width of the footpaths, and because we've allowed for that space in the plan. We also plan equitably to share the benefits and the costs of development. So there will be traffic being generated by the new homes and the people moving into this area. But we want to give as many people as possible good access to their homes and give people, and not only existing people, but not only the people moving into the area, but also the people from the surrounding area, also good access to the new amenities that this precinct will provide. Cook Walk, the park, and the shops and services, and the cycle lane. And so planning for these accessible streets with streets that connect is how we make sure we can share those benefits as widely as possible. So when you don't plan with these principles in mind, you close off neighbourhoods, you close off communities from each other, you can load people up with more impacts unreasonably than others, you can remove access to improvements or benefits like parks, and you discourage people from moving through neighbourhoods, and you might end up wasting people's time and energy on travelling indirect routes. And we've just seen in the paper yesterday the problem out west at Marsden Park, and the government only built one road in and one road out. And the problem that's now causing for that community there, and the investment that government has to make to catch up with taxpayer dollars, whereas what we have at this point is a commitment from the developer to construct the infrastructure. So once we've established the road network and how the blocks and how the development's laid out, we then look, in the process, we then look to how do we manage the impacts and design best to manage those impacts. So we're intending for the Ashmore precinct to be a low traffic neighbourhood, to be a slow traffic neighbourhood. We have maximum parking numbers and they're quite low compared to many other places in Sydney. That limits the overall amount of traffic that can be generated from the development. There are 5 access points, but once the development's completed, there's 5 access points into and out of the neighbourhood. Only 2 of those are new and additional to serve that extra 6,000-ish population. Access is concentrated along Mitchell Road because that is the largest road that can carry the most traffic. MacDonald Street is the main access route, and as you've heard from the Lord there, it's designed as a slow street with a lot of amenities and infrastructure, the trees, the cycleway, the really wide footpaths that prioritise it for walking and cycling.
Excuse me, what is a slow street?
Well, that is where you narrow the street and make it as uninviting as possible for cars to drive fast, and you put in speed humps and you encourage as many people to be on the street as possible so that cars are aware that it's a pedestrian place.
So that means you can either go
Hold
west.
on, sorry, I should have digressed. I might.
Nothing about.
Let him finish.
I know you might not be academic, but the agenda actually had a section with questions, so would you shut up? I'm not in charge, I'm saying you shut up while someone else is talking. Because you're not in charge.
Okay.
Start the Q&A.
Come on, guys. Hold on.
We're at 6:30.
Hold on.
What time is question?
I'll speed. I'll move on. Okay.
And you about trying to understand it.
All right, we're ready to go. I understand you want to get to questions, so I will move on. So, what's in the street to make it slow? We have 2 travel lanes, relatively narrow, only 1 in each direction. There's parking on each side. We have the streets. We have a lot of greenery, and we have, as I said, very generous footpaths as well as the crossings and the speed humps. And so, without the extension, there is also the problem of diverting traffic to the existing roads and the intersection, particularly at Ashmore Street and Mitchell Road, which is going to be the most challenging in terms of traffic volumes. And there could be unintended consequences of pushing traffic to other areas in order for people to move in and out of this precinct. So that's behind the... You asked me to move on? There'll be a chance for... I'm just about to hand over to Kim Woodbury. So that's the background to the planning for the area and how we got to a road there. Kim is going to take you through the road itself, the intersection.
So I've just got a few slides, so we will have time for questions. There's no doubt about that. We're here to hear questions and to answer questions. So just move on to the next slide. Mitchell Road and Maddox intersection, so which is the new MacDonald Street, extension of MacDonald Street is proposed to join into. Just to reiterate some of the things that Ben has said, so it's actually had, we've actually had, as far as traffic studies about congestion in the area and safety in the area and speeds. So the city has undertaken in 2018 the Alexandria LATM and a number of community meetings on that. Then after West Connects opened, we had a lot of community feedback and we extended that study, reviewed that study, included the northeastern part of Erskineville into that, and that didn't take into account the development that was coming online in the Ashmore precinct. So that study was done, and then recently, following discussions with community, we undertook a review of the intersection itself, the proposed traffic signals, and that considered 4 options. So the traffic signals and 3 alternative options, which I'll quickly go into. So the 4 options that assessed were conventional traffic signals. Then the second option was traffic signals with curb extensions, so to narrow down widen the footpaths, narrow down the running lanes, so to reduce speeds, and also reduce the walking distance that you have to have for pedestrians to cross. A roundabout we've raised crossings, and a priority left in and left out, so left in and left out only of MacDonald Street. So the study is actually available, and if you want a copy of that, you can register with us at the end of the meeting, and we'll send that out to you if you just provide us your email. So the city is currently working with Transport for New South Wales on waiting times, because one of the key things is waiting times and the cycle, the time you have to wait at traffic signals. We're working with those. We're still also seeking final approval in principles, which is pretty much approval to the concept design with Transport for New South Wales. So what's proposed is traffic signals with these curb extensions. It will have a dedicated bi-directional cycleway and crossings on Mitchell Road, The footpaths will be widened. That will reduce the crossing distances and the walking time to reduce risk, safety risk.
Which streets will they widen out the pavement?
I'll show you an image in a minute. So perhaps we'll provide that now. So this image here, you see it's faint, and we can sense these through, but there's red lines across here. Those red lines are widening the footpath, the curb
Which
line.
street today? I can't see.
So this is MacDonald Street,
Yeah.
MacDonald Street and Maddox Street and Mitchell.
No, I'm talking about Rochford and MacDonald further up.
That's why we're here.
We'll leave that for a question afterwards. So you can see here on that intersection, there'll be pedestrian crossings on all sides, so on all 4 crossings. And they're aligned with the desire line, so you don't have to offset as you go along. You walk along the footpath, you go straight across, you don't need to offset. There'll be build-outs of curves and the narrowing of vehicle lanes to reduce speed and that walking distance. Separated by directional cycleway, you can see that in the green on the map, and some planned turns, right turn bands in some of the directions there that you can see, based to reduce that conflict, particularly turning right with pedestrians, and that's one of the major safety issues with intersections, regardless of the design, is where you turn left or right, and you've got that conflict potentially with pedestrians. So I'm talking about pedestrian safety here. So we will be, as the Lord Mayor mentioned, we'll be undertaking monitoring once the new road and intersection is constructed. And I should say that we're not talking about a highway here, we're talking about a local street. So a lot of the studies that have been referred to are really referenced around main roads and the like. So this is a local street as part of a precinct. So it's, as Ben mentioned, you need to look at this as part of a precinct. It's not an individual section, and the flow on for within the precinct and outside the precinct. But
local area. That's the difference.
Yes.
It's not a highway, but it's a very high density.
Yes, it is high density.
That's where the problems come up. Thank you.
So we're going to take the monitoring intermittently over a 12-month period. Obviously, there's a settling in period. Traffic adjusts, people will be moving into the apartments, and that will take some time. And there will be development post MacDonald Street opening and the park opening. So there'll be further development to the south of that the current development. So we'll do that monitoring. And
monitoring now?
you can ask a question in a while, but I'll give you some detail. So
When is this wide going to be?
It was on the agenda. Literally seen it in the years.
perhaps I'll move to the next steps, and that will just cover just some timelines. Doesn't appear to be on there, so maybe it's that I'm reading that out. So the developer is currently developing their next section of housing, And I think it might have been on that previous slide, if somebody can go back. Somebody can organise to go back there. So it's I think called Block E. When they can't get occupation for, so this block here. So they're currently in excavation at the moment, so it started construction. They have to deliver the park, this part of Hooker Walk, which is pedestrian, and MacDonald Street section through here, that eastern section of MacDonald Street. They have to deliver that before they can occupy that building. So we expect that to be, it's obviously dependent on how far quickly the developer moves and their construction goes, weather and the like. But we expect probably by the end of next year, 27 or early 28, around about that period, don't hold me to it, but around about that period, so 18 months to 2 years, that the park would open, Cooker Walk would open, and the eastern end of MacDonald Street would come into Mitchell Road and the intersection constructed. So this gives you an idea of timing, and we'll be monitoring before opening traffic speeds, volumes as required, because we'll see what that is. And as the Lord Mayor said, if there is an issue, we will then address that issue. But the thing is, at the moment, we've got I'm sure there'll be certain views about this will be a problem, that will be a problem. Some of those things may realise, some of those things may not realise. But we can always address, we've got plenty of kids parts in the toolkit to actually see what the problem is and have a solution or a measure to address that problem. So we might let it there, and the Lord Mayor, will be here, and we'll open it up for questions. So, yes.
Okay, so do you want to go first? You're very keen to ask.
Yeah, I was thinking, if I may,
It'd be good if you say your name and
my name's John Costin. I've got a house in Union Street, which I've lived in for 30 years or so.
Can't hear you.
All right. My main issue, my main question is about the monitoring. The Lord Mayor has sensibly directed all of you people that it needs to be monitored. What are the criteria for establishing whether it's met its objectives or not? We need to have very clear sort of set out objectives of what happens if it's not meeting. I mean, not what happens, but how do we know whether it's meeting the objectives or not?
Okay.
And how will the monitoring be undertaken? Presumably you'll need to take lots of baseline monitoring, which means sort of traffic counts, including both sides of the railway line. I might suggest the corner of Union Street, and Maddox Street as well, but the corner of Union Street and King Street, the corner of St John Street and King Street, various other people might be able to suggest other places, and the railway bridges. There needs to be traffic counters established there, and I think the council needs to be very clear on what the next steps are if indeed it doesn't meet the objectives. If there is a lot of leakage of traffic from basically from Bunnings to Alice Street.
Yes.
What specifically is the council going to do about it?
So, if there is a measure required because there is an issue identified in the monitoring, we will look at the options to address that issue. We can't at this stage say, okay, this is a measure, because at the moment there's a lot of surmising about what will and won't occur. So we need to monitor. So that monitoring, we're happy to get feedback as to locations for monitoring, but that will be visual inspections, it will be speed as well. But also the main thing that we've actually heard from the community is the worry about it's going to be a rat run, so people going through the precincts rather than, but there will be many people who will be actually having an origin or a destination within that precinct, and some of those residents actually aren't there at the moment. They will be coming online. So we will do traffic counts and traffic speeds at certain locations, and we're happy to have a discussion as to where that should be. But the thing is, that will give you the speed and the traffic volumes. what we need to discern is that actually going through as a rat run, or is actually part of the impact of the development as a whole, because you don't have an extra 6,000 people into an area and have no increase in traffic volumes. There'll be big increases in pedestrian volumes and cycling volumes.
Okay, so the woman over here. Hello, thank you for coming this evening. I'd like to ask what so many people else have said, what happens beyond the railway bridge? The other part of MacDonald Street that leads up to King Street. Those streets, that street is incredibly narrow. The pavements in many places are less than 1 metre wide with large trees on them, and it's a well-known local thing that people walk on the road, they cycle on the road, they push pushchairs on the road. When you open it up, you won't just be opening it up to that estate, you'll be opening it up the whole way up to King Street, and people going along Mitchell Road will be able to avoid 5 sets of traffic lights by cutting through. So what are your plans? For everything you said to the east of the bridge? How are you going to do that on the west of the bridge? What traffic calming will there be? What cycleways will you be introducing? How will you be protecting pedestrians? Thank you.
So the monitoring that I spoke about is not just in this precinct. It will be to the west of the railway lines. It will actually also be to the north and also to the south and actually to the east.
Monitoring doesn't protect.
Monitoring
doesn't protect people from being
Can you try to walk on foot past the street?
So if Kim could answer, then we're going down the back. We're taking notes on all of your concerns and following up on them, I can assure you. Down the back.
My name's David Mackey. Thank you for coming tonight. I have 2 hats tonight. Firstly, I'm a resident of Coulson Street in Sydney Park Village, and I'm the chairman of Building 17. So I'd like to know, with the new opening of MacDonald Street, will it remove some of the traffic from Coulson Street and Eve Street intersection, where people are using it to access all their apartments now, and now once MacDonald Street opens, it will lessen our traffic on Coulson Street? So that's the first question. My second hat is I'm the president of Sydney Spokes, which is a LGBTQ cycle group, and we use cycleways constantly and everywhere in the city. Thank you very much. So we're very pleased with all these new cycle paths that you're putting in. I noticed on your one of the slides, from MacDonald Street it enters Maddox Street, but where does the cycleway go down Maddox Street? Where is it going to Belmont Street to connect there? It wasn't clear.
So cycleway first. So we do have plans for a future Maddox Street cycleway to do that, and I think we're in the planning phase of that at the moment. So there is but you have to do a bit at a time. So this is a part of the planned cycleway route in relation to that. Coulson Street on traffic fines, you probably need to go back to the original traffic studies that were done on those ones there. So there is, as I say, there's a bit of surmising. So if MacDonald Street was closed at Mitchell Street, there's concern about the through traffic, that would reduce the through traffic. But certainly there's existing movements at the moment, and that the movements of people within that precinct close to that intersection would need to come out. If they're driving, would need to come out, and they would need to go somewhere. So I'm not going to give it an answer whether it's more or less. You probably need to go back to the traffic studies on those. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. First of all, thank you to the Mayor and the Council team for attending tonight. I've got a couple of questions. My name's Dean. I'm a resident on Prospect Street. And it's less about what you've really presented tonight, and it's more about the wider picture around the precinct. Because, unless I've got it completely wrong, the only exit points will be Prospect Street and Rochford Street. So you can have hundreds of people in the new apartments funneling out of the 2 very narrow one-way streets. So it's not the speed of the traffic, it's not the lack of cycle paths particularly, and it's not the fact that it's going to be particularly dangerous. It will be the volume of hundreds of cars, not necessarily going in, but leaving and going through what essentially is a quiet village area. There's 11,500 residents in this area. You've had 10,500 letters and 1,000 direct to council. I don't think the concern is the fact that you're building a tiny little road and the pictures are great. The concern is what it's going to do to all those narrow one-way streets, because you're going to be pushing hundreds of cars through. The question I've got is, why can't it just do a circular U-shaped route where you go in, you go around, and you go out through Ashmore, which is next to an oval and existing apartments? Why are you pushing traffic through tiny narrow streets in the village?
So, probably not a direct response to yours, but at the moment, as Ben mentioned, we've actually now got 4 entry points for vehicles at the moment, or exit points for vehicles. At the moment, there will be 5 with the MacDonald Street one.
No, I'm talking exit points, not entry points.
Yes.
Exit points are very narrow.
Yes.
There's a lot coming in, but there's not many going out. So really, predominantly, you look at a prospect approach there that will be funneled with traffic, which then has the impact of where you've got 2-hour parking. People are going to start using those spots to park to go into the shops. So it's not that we're against development, it's not that we're against it being beautified, which is fantastic. It's about what you're trying to do is push all of this traffic through a beautiful, quiet village atmosphere.
The focus has been on this side of the bridge and all of the surrounding areas. Both of us here aren't really interested in what we are presenting. What we are presenting, what we want to know is the broader picture from a holistic approach of everything that is around there, which is not on your map.
It's
not on your map at all.
Right. If you're not talking about the impact, you've got very narrow view on one piece of street. What you're affecting is an entire ecosystem that we all love. That's going to be affecting.
Which has already been impacted by opening it up earlier. So, what's your baseline as well? What's your baseline 10 years ago when you first opened it up?
A lot of people here weren't here 10 years ago when they saw the DA. So, and it's changing, it's morphing into, a fantastic family area.
Okay,
Yes, thanks to...
I might just get Kim to comment on that.
Yeah. So I hear what you're saying. We probably need to go back to those traffic studies that we've done before, because they did look at the whole precinct. Not just the Ashmore precinct.
That's the problem. That's why we're here. I think that's why most people are here.
Yeah.
You have to look at it as a precinct mentality, not a one-street mentality.
Can I just ask why does MacDonald Street have to be a through street for cars? Why? People can get out of the precinct onto Mitchell Road. Why do the cars have to go west under the bridge to MacDonald?
Here.
For cycle, by all means, for pedestrians. Why should cars go through there to King Street?
It's blocked all the time.
Yes.
Okay, one time, so it gets answers.
Can I try and answer the gentleman's question over here? Traffic studies for the effect on the surrounding area were done in the lead up to the adoption of the planning controls, and they're on a council report on the agenda.
They were not.
And it predicts the it predicts the number of movements.
Listen to the transport expert. That is Dr. Chris Standen.
Show me the page in here where it shows the amount of through traffic using those locals.
Should we give this no microphone, please?
So we'll take that on notice and we'll check the report.
Yeah, please don't come and lie to us. Answer our question. If you don't know the answer, say you don't know.
Hold on. There's a distinction there. You mentioned through traffic. That's different to what I was talking about.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
This is why we've committed to doing the monitoring, and if there are problems, we can take action. Yeah.
So look, we're taking down everything you're saying, and it's clearly this is a wider issue than just what we're looking at here. So we will take down what you're saying, and we will come back again. We will have another session with hopefully more answers. So if I can just hear politely from the rest of you, we'll take it down, take it away, and then we will come back with more answers, okay? So, Katrina, that person there with his hand up. And then Katrina, when you sit back in the...
if I was to drive west along MacDonald Street, turn left onto Rochford Street, right onto Union Street, and then head up Knight Street, I get to a signalised intersection there owned by Inner West Council, I believe. At the moment, there's excessive queuing of the intersection ahead, and I'd like to know what coordination has been done with Inner West Council around extending the green time of the intersection. 2 cars per light, 1 running the red.
Okay, so we'll take another.
And there's a long queue there.
Okay, so up the, Katrina, up the back to Wendy in the right direction.
I think the topic would like to say,
Sorry, I'd like to say I've lived in this area for 40 years. Not long after the roadblocks were done, I moved in. I know these streets intimately. I've walked them every several days, including Union Street, Rochford Street and MacDonald Street. And I'd very much like to add to what Virginia said here about the narrowness of the paths and the trees. But that is all what we want in Erskineville. This is what we have supported the City of Sydney. So many times we've supported you on these policies, and I'm just shocked that we're here talking about a road through the back of Erskineville. I honestly find it quite hard to believe. If I had been given a leaflet, I would have made a submission, and I can only assume the councillors were not really aware either. So my question is, in the motion that was passed through the City of Sydney, there's a link to an ACOM, name very familiar to me through WestConnex, ACOM study on the impacts of all of this. And it says, it's one line about the impact on the area to the west of that fence, as I said. There's one line that just says it won't have a significant effect on the streets to the west. There is no figure, there is nothing more than that. What is, first of all, I'd like to have the full study given to the public of the impact on the streets on the west, including the residents who walk. So I'd like the City of Sydney to supply that to us. And I've got one additional question. What I don't understand is before you do it and then monitor, no doubt not to undo what you've already done, why don't you just put an access point through the fence? People can walk and cycle through it. I'm very happy to welcome a new town square and cafes, but let's not open up that road because it really is insanity.
So, over here. Over there.
My name's Christy. Thank you for having this tonight. I won't talk for long because I actually live off Maddox Street. I know we're talking about MacDonald Street tonight, but there's been no consideration that I can see of the impacts on Maddox Street or the streets that lead off Maddox Street. I've lived in that street now for coming up 22 years. There's been no communication from anybody. There aren't very many people from the Alexandria side here tonight, there's a few, because we just don't know about it. It hasn't been discussed. Maddox Street is already a parking lot, peak AM and PM. We can't handle more traffic, and my concern is, and our view is, Maddox Street will become a service road into the new development for the Woolies deliveries, not deliveries to houses, but deliveries to the supermarkets, garbage disposal, all that kind of stuff. And we can't move as it is. So I think someone said good access for residents. It's going to ruin our access.
I just wish Minister Scully was here to hear this. Okay,
so on Mac Street, I think the problem in Mac Street was recognised when we did the local area traffic study, and I know not everybody will be happy with all the measures that are proposed in there.
I haven't seen the measures, and I think the only thing I saw was Maddox Street is going to be, and that's all I read. So I think we need more information from council or from Rose, I don't know who, but
we did, Ali, work in Alexandria when we were really concerned about the impact of WestConnex and trying to reduce the traffic from WestConnex. And we did work around that there at that time. We had a lot of public meetings with Alexandria people, as you probably remember. So we're really dealing with Erskineville. And It's really difficult. You know, government wants more and more people living in areas like this, right? And they set numbers, you know, way back when this industrial area was being redeveloped. Same with Green Square, and we've had to manage it all. And we are really working very hard to have a people-friendly city rather than a car-friendly city. But we do acknowledge that some people use cars and they need to have access. So that's really, and you just need to look at all the work we're doing everywhere to reduce the number, or to make it more attractive for people walking and cycling rather than driving, so and using public transport. So that's our favoured position, and if we didn't have to put in any roads here, it would be much, much better. But we do have to put access in there for the people living into this new development, which as we have gone over the history, this goes way back. Green Square and Ashmore go way back. It's what past governments saw as opportunities to provide housing in the city. So that's what we're trying to deal with. We really do want to try and work with you to get the best outcomes in terms of accommodating people having access and keeping good lives for you in Erskineville. I remember when we did all those road closures way back, and it was a harrowing time. But you know, it is a very walkable neighbourhood, and we really don't want to have a serious impact on it. So we will come back to you with work we do further after tonight. But if we can try and get as much information, that would be good. Yeah.
I'm Neil Ronald. I live on MacDonald Street in the area in the map.
I own a car and I'm very happy with the access the way it is. I don't need to drive onto Mitchell from MacDonald. Bicycles, pushchairs, wheelchairs, pedestrians. Yes, but we have ample access already. We don't need another access. No.
Just one at a time, please.
No access from Mitchell onto MacDonald.
Okay, you can make a note of that. So, we'll give you the mic.
Yes. My name is Werner. I live right on the corner of MacDonald Street and Pleasant Avenue. It is west of here that you can't see on the map. And that section is hardly a day where I don't witness road rage. There is one car coming from the west, another one coming from the east. There's no way they can pass unless there is a parking spot that somebody can back up or drive further back into a road section where one car can then make room for the other one. What will happen when there are more traffic is coming? There will be road rage every hour of the day.
Yeah.
So the only solution for that is to turn MacDonald Street into one way, going from west to east. Then there won't be a problem. So.
Just on the road rage thing, I live just off Huntley Street, which has exactly that. And there is no road rage. People slow down, they let the car come through. My experience now going across Huntley Street every day is that it slows traffic down. One-way streets, speed it up because they know they never need to wait. So on Huntley Street, it is one lane, but it's two-way, and the cars come, they pause, someone goes through, and it slows it down. I just want to say that this is our experience, and it's a good one.
Okay, thank you.
I live on the corner of Amy and MacDonald. Near this gentleman. Sorry. I'm on the corner of Amy and MacDonald. Near this gentleman, and I want to support 100% what he's saying. Every day, with people coming out of Amy Street as well, and people coming up and down MacDonald Street, there is road rage. People are having to back down the street. There's parking on both sides of the road, so there's minimal chance for people to pass. So already there's a problem without exacerbating it by putting more traffic through.
Yeah, I just want to also, just from a very personal
we've all got personal stories about, and we want to have the best facilities. I don't have a problem with the development. I'm not nostalgic. I'm not kind of wanting, Erskineville to stay exactly the same, because that's not realistic. I mean, I feel very privileged to live here, but I've lived on the corner of where MacDonald comes into Rochford Street. And seriously, I cannot tell you the amount of times that I've almost got run over, because people fly down there. Yeah, they fly across around the corner. And seriously, and that's really happened in the increase in through traffic has happened maybe in the last 5-6 years. And it's really, and COVID has changed people's patterns of how they move through as well. And that's really been significant. And another thing is that on MacDonald Street, you can never get a park, and that's fine. You accept that in inner city area. But in the last 8 months, my car on MacDonald Street has been sideswiped 3 times.
Maybe the council should start paying for
and seriously, it's not because I'm not saying this because I want things to stay the same. I just want to feel safe, and I want to have a reasonable quality of life. So, yeah.
Can I ask too? My name's Alana. I live on Rochford Street between Victoria Street and MacDonald Street. I have young children. I normally push the pram on the roads because the walkways are too narrow for the pram. Rochford Street between Victoria Street and MacDonald Street. Push pram. I have a pram. I push them on the road. I also have an electric bike that I ride with the 2 kids, which I have to ride on the road. When I ride on MacDonald Street, Rochford Street, a lot of the streets, even though they're 2 ways, only 1 car can fit. And I find the pram and the bike, I have to stop behind a car when there's a gap. It's very dangerous. Are you going to get rid of parking so that there's space for cars to move 2 ways? How are you going to fit?
Yeah.
Because I can just imagine, there's nowhere for the cars to go. How are you planning for that? Are you all of a sudden going to surprise us with parking being removed?
We are taking this down and see how difficult it is for us to come up with solutions for the great is good for the majority. Is that working? Yes, Katrina.
It's on.
Hi, I'm on Bridge Street and MacDonald Street. My question is, are we factoring in additional traffic from the large supermarket that's going to go in one of the new developments? So my understanding is one of these build to rents is going to have what the developer calls a large value supermarket, which to me would attract additional traffic beyond people potentially using it as a cut through, and beyond the additional traffic from residents who obviously have a right to park. But there's going to be, I understand, the large Coles.
Okay, so I'd like to respond to that. In a lot of areas where I live in Redfern, for example, everyone walks to the shops. I would hope you would all be walking to the shops here.
Yeah, we will. Yeah.
You do not, you don't. I mean, and that's city living and that's good. So we can't provide suburban accommodation. Suburban accommodation, driving to the supermarket, that's really not on in the city anymore. Well, I would suggest that all of you living near it walk there. That would be
there'll be people from outside. There will be a lot of people from outside.
Hi, I'm Steve, a resident on Belmont Street, and I appreciate there's a lot of people here focused on Erskineville tonight, but I do take issue with the comment that it's not about Alexandria, it's about anyone who's affected by this development. And what are you doing to ensure that Maddox Street doesn't become another Mitchell Road? Because at the moment, as we talked about, it's blocked up during any busy times. And as you talked about, where people are trying to make this a livable, walkable city, Belmont Street and Lawrence Street, beautiful place to walk around, you're about to cut that in half by having another Mitchell Road along Maddox Street.
Yeah.
I've been
told we're running out of time, so.
Well, we'll take all those comments, and as the Lord Mayor said, we'll come back and let you look at those, because one thing affects the other, so...
We might have to come back a few times.
Yes.
To keep it in a place rather than a car place.
I'm a resident of Prospect Street. I've been there for 13 years. I'm an avid cyclist, and I've only recently bought a car. I found ways in and out of Erskineville and through the back of Ashmore Estate. I love cycling through the roadblock on Ashmore Estate where you've got the bollards. Okay, thinking about MacDonald Street, it's the only thoroughfare from the east to the west. What it needs is bollards.
Bollards, yeah.
Plenty of access points to the old Erskineville side. There's plenty of access points to the new Ashmore Estate side. There's no reason for cars to drive through.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, here.
Okay, we'll have a couple more questions.
Hi, I'm Deborah. I live in Park Street, which is on the other side of Erskineville Oval. I noticed one of the suggestions, or one of the options, has a no right turn off Maddox into Mitchell Road. Is that one of the options?
Yes.
Right. Effectively forcing all the locals that live on that side, if they're coming off Maddox Street, they will now drive to Foundry Street, down Fox Avenue to get to Park Street, or to get to Copeland Swanson Street. So in fact, by no turning right, you drive everybody off a main road and create another rat run.
I'd like to propose a motion to the meeting that the City of Sydney, 1, pause the implementation of the new road between MacDonald Street and Mitchell Road, and 2, engages with the community to design a solution for this public space that aligns with the City's Sustainable Sydney 2050 vision. All those in favour, please raise your hand. All those opposed? I think it's carried.
Everything went through class to accommodate Sustainable Sydney 2030 to 2050. So we might finish now. We've got a lot of work to do. We'll come back. I can't say when, but it'll be soon. So how long will this work take? We won't waste our time, and we will come back as soon as we can and try and sort this out. We want to have, a good environment, a good neighbourhood, and we want it to be predominantly for people and not for cars.